Hi there, this is MJ on the journey back to Silicon Valley. Today we will be looking at problem 217 on Leetcode. Contains duplicate. So given an integer array nums, return true if any value appears at least twice in the array, and return false if all the values are unique. So basically, if you're given an arbitrary array, you would return true if any of those values appear at least twice, and then return false otherwise. So when I initially looked at the problem, thinking about it from a JavaScript standpoint, I automatically thought of using a built-in function. And I've done some research and found that there's a includes function that can achieve this actually. So after some initial thinking, these are the steps. So what I'm doing here, I'm creating a new array to store unique values, and then I'm stepping through each element in nums and checking if the new array already has that value. If it does, the function would return true. If it doesn't, then it would push the element where it's at to the new array. And then it would return false by default if all the elements are actually unique and there's no duplicates. So this is the initial code I came up with. So as you can see here, there's a variable new r, which initializes a empty array to store the unique values. Then we're stepping through nums, each element at a time, and then using the includes JavaScript function to see if that value is included or not. If it is included, the function returns true. If it's not, then it would push that value to the new array created. And then by default, it would return false if it found that all the elements are actually unique. So this is the initial code that I've came up with, and then I ran it. I got the green check mark on Leetcode, and then I submitted. And here are the stats. So as you can see, I'm beating only 10% of all submissions on Leetcode. Now, it's not the first time it happened. Usually, I never went past this point. I would just move on and worry about finding a better solution or understanding why the code is performing so bad later. But I didn't do that this time. I actually looked at the solution again and really tried to understand complexity. So let's look at it again here. So we're creating a new array that's a memory. It's memory complexity. So nothing really happening here that's affecting the runtime. Memory is another issue. We can get into that later, but I'm mainly focused on the time complexity here. So there's a for loop that iterates through each element of nums. So in the worst case scenario, it has to go through all nums to actually find the value. So that would be a complexity of big O of n, because it has to go through all nums in the worst case. And then after that, it's using includes, built-in function from JavaScript. And includes itself actually has a big O of n complexity, because in order for it to find out if a particular value is included, it has to iterate also through each element in nums. So you have the for loop having an on, big O of n complexity, and then inside the for loop, you have includes, which itself is using big O of n complexity. So that would make the total complexity of the solution n squared, which is not that good. And that's what's causing the performance to be so bad on Leetcode. So the first thing I thought about, or like what came to mind, is if I can find a way to look up the values, find if a particular value is included or not. If I could find a better way to do that, then I can improve complexity. So I did some research and I discovered JavaScript Set. And a set has constant lookup times. So you can look up a value in big O of 1, actually. It's constant time versus using includes. So I've revised the code to use a set, and here are the steps right now here. So I'm creating a new set to store the unique values instead of creating an array. And then I'm stepping through each element in nums and checking if that element is already included in the set. If it is, then the function returns true. If it is not included in the set, then I'm using the add function to add it to the set. And then the function would return false by default if all the elements are unique. And here's the code that I've revised here. So as you can see here, there's a variable set that initializes a new set that's empty. And then I'm iterating over nums, one element at a time. If the value is included in the set, and particularly I'm using .has, which is a built-in function in set. So if the set has that value, the function returns true. If the set doesn't have it, then it would add it to the set. And then by default, it would return false if it figures out that all the elements are actually unique. And I submitted this solution to Leetcode, and this is what I got. So the solution beats 99.4% of all the solutions that are submitted on Leetcode. So it went from 10% to actually over 99.4%. And that was mainly due to changing the data structure used. Initially, I've used an array and had to use includes built-in function, which had to iterate over through the entire array. So I've switched from using an array to using a set, because the set would have constant lookup time. You don't have to iterate over the entire set to actually find the element. You can just look it up in constant time. And that drastically has changed the performance of the code. So it really matters what data structure you ultimately choose to store your data. Thank you guys. I hope this was valuable, and we'll see you next time.